Grand Rising Life Force, and welcome to Speak Pro Radio. My name is Stefan Rao, more commonly known as Tank, and this is Life Force Network. And today is a black coffee kind of day. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. We're going to start by going over the latest world situation report that's on UnitedNetwork.Earth with the ground commander, Kimberly Ann Gogan. We're going to talk about some of those things. To be honest, because the reason to be honest is because that is really the most compelling news going on in the world, and it's the one piece of news that we can actually count on to be true. So we can use that to kind of decipher and look at many other things going on in the world. So it's pretty amazing, actually, what's been going on in the world ever since the latest alleged attempted assassination of Donald Trump. And we're kind of watching things unfold as expected, with all of the pomp and circumstance and various people coming up to talk about that. Now, we don't want to consume ourselves talking about that because, to be quite honest, I don't really think it matters that much. However, it does make for good television, makes for intriguing conversation, at least on some level. So with that in mind, we're live, Laura. Are you ready to go? All right. With me, as always, is my partner and everything. Laura, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. Al?
I am. I'm pretty good. So, there's been. I feel like Kim explained a lot of things that we were seeing and experiencing this weekend, and we're gonna dive into that a little bit. And I think that'll help a lot of other people actually when they maybe they hear our experiences because we're an open book and we don't care at this point, so we're gonna tell you everything. So, what do you think? Where do you want to get started? You want to just go through situation report or?
Well, I think we should leave that to, I would love to get like your summary on it. However, there was just a few things. So look, I'll go with you. If you want to do a whole summary and then we can go point by point, what would you like to do? Because there was a lot of things, of information with the situation report. And I think a lot of it as well is really important for people to know. It's mind-blowing and there aren't more people that know about this.
So I have some insight on some of these things because I worked with Kim during the only Trump administration when he was in office, and worked very closely. So I can kind of expand a little bit on some of the things that she talked about, or at least talk about them a little further. Mm-hmm. So how about we break that down? You chime in whenever you have a question, or whenever you have an answer for that matter. How about that?
Okay. How about I ask you one question then? Because the thing is, what I did want to ask you was, she spoke about the Trumpization. And I think that, the things that she was saying, I was like, wait, how do people not know this? I know that a lot of people go down the rabbit hole, they call it. How was this not discovered? How is he so important without people knowing about this, of the things that are on her report? So if you could break that down for me.
So do you want to talk about the deep state that Trump hires? I didn't hear the first word you said.
The Trump Organization.
The Trump Organization. Okay. Let's talk about the Trump Organization. This is absolute fact. Like it or not, this is a reality. Kim talked about, she mentioned, the new Vice President Vance, right? And basically, she was talking about saying that the Trump Organization has now assumed they will win. Now, I mean, they're running against, a wet piece of paper, basically, with Joe Biden. And no one else is even really seems like a candidate at all. You're not even hearing about any other candidates, right? So, Trump's organization, the Order of the Black Sun Trumpers, right, that are like, think that they're white hats, so to speak, right? Basically, they've assumed that they're going to win the presidency, so they started to reach out and make people part of their, part of the cabinet, right? So Jamie Dimon from Chase Bank, who's been the CEO or the president or whatever, he's the head over the Chase Bank for a long, long time, and so he was basically recruited to be the new Secretary of the Treasury when Trump takes office, right? And so Kim made a point about this, about the last. There's no now. The reason why is because Jamie Dimon has been doing stuff with derivatives to basically keep these banks afloat, right?
Mhm.
And so now he's not really any different. He's the same evil monster he's always been, stealing from the poor to feed the rich, kind of thing, right? And setting up all types of things within that. Banking is a shifty business, right? And he is definitely part of the order to do evil things. So that being said, it was kind of noteworthy because the last Secretary of the Treasury that was appointed by Donald Trump was Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Right, Steve Mnuchin, most famous not for his exploits with Goldman Sachs or even as the treasurer or doing anything positive. He's actually famous for running a child trafficking ring out of the Treasury. In fact, and he would run this for various government officials, all the various government officials that are into, it's a pedo ring, it's a pedophile ring. And he would have people come, and this was actually on video. Kim actually turned the video in to the Trump organization, thinking they would do something about it, obviously, right? Because at this time, we were hoping that Donald Trump, he was kind of out of the fray and out of the normal political realm. So she turned over this information, right, of this video of Steve Mnuchin organizing, like having all this whole group of officials. I'm not sure if it was, who it was exactly, but people that work at the Treasury and maybe government officials. I'm not sure who they were or what they were, but it was obvious from the video. You could see who it was. And then brought in a series of young girls, like very young girls, if I recall. And there might have been some little boys in there too, but brought in these young girls for each of them to go and then have their way with, right? Now, this is a common practice. Horrifyingly, this is a common practice, right? When I say young girls, I don't mean like 18-year-old girls. I mean like 12-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old girls, like babies, basically. Okay, brought these
Mm.
girls in for these men to have their way with, right? And go do whatever. Now, they do this on purpose, right? So it's on video. So if they ever try to do something against Steve Mnuchin or whomever he's representing, that they could basically, pull out the video and say, remember when this happened, right? So that was Steve Mnuchin. Now, remember, this video was turned over to the Trump organization. And while Trump's allegedly out there saving babies from deep underground military bases, apparently, he didn't think it was necessary to fire or at least bring to light or something with Steve Mnuchin. He kept him on staff and it was completely ignored. That's one person from the deep state that the Trump organization wholeheartedly endorsed. Now, also, Donald Trump's last vice president was Mike Pence. Now, Mike Pence was running a trafficking ring with President Obrador from Mexico, and all of these records were discovered in Santander Bank, right? And this trafficking ring was actually trafficking, I think it was young boys and young girls up to New York State. And this was in coordination with Cuomo at the time, Governor Cuomo at the time. Now, this was also coincidentally when everybody was talking about being a sanctuary, city or sanctuary state, right? And so in New York, they made it legal for illegal aliens to get a license. And it became a sanctuary city. Now, why did they do that? Well, because you were bringing in all these people that were being trafficked. And then at the same time, they also legalized 40-week abortion. 40-week abortions, right? They legalized abortion in New York up to 40 weeks, is what I'm trying to say. So basically, up to the day the child is born. So a woman could come in for any reason. That was the one thing. So for any reason. So if that woman decided, I can't do it another day, kill this baby, they could kill the baby. Now, most people call that birth. But in New York, it can be an abortion. All right, that's the first thing. The next thing is, now that's a law, by the way, just for the record, that is the law. Now that was passed at this same time when Trump was in office and Mike Pence was running a trafficking ring to New York, and at the same time that illegal immigration was basically glorified and everything in New York became a sanctuary city, sanctuary state, right? And you could get a license as an illegal alien in New York. Now, What do these things have in common? I'll tell you what they have in common. And remember, the base root of this is the Trump organization. The vice president was directly part of this, right? So think about it. If you have illegal aliens coming in, young women specifically, you could pay them to have a child or to carry a child rather, and then legally, and this is all legal, they could come in, legally carry a child up to 40 weeks, and at 40 weeks the child could be aborted or more accurately harvested legally. Not only that, in the same law that was passed at the same time, in this law, what happened was they said that you don't even have to be a licensed medical professional. So you could just specialize in abortions. I guess Tony the Butcher could just specialize in abortions, right? I'm not sure the extent of how that goes, but you don't have to be a licensed medical doctor to perform an abortion. So now think about what you've created in New York State with the Mike Pence, the vice president for the Trump organization, right? And Obrador from Mexico. And New York being the empire state, right? So what Cuomo was trying to set up was to make New York the spot to go to for legalized adrenochrome. Okay? So you could harvest babies legally and they're aborted. And what happens to aborted fetuses? They are sold. They are sold to places like Planned Parenthood, who sells the parts. They sell the parts, the harvested organs, to various organizations for research and, yes, to create a drug called adrenochrome, which is the selected drug of the super rich. And they use this drug for various reasons, and one of the reasons why they want it from babies is because just like an organ transplant, when you do an organ transplant, oftentimes you'll hear about people who have flashbacks of the donor of that organ, right? So if you get flashbacks of an adult, right, from using adrenochrome, that could be really traumatic for someone. It wouldn't be a pleasant experience, right? But if you get it from a baby who has almost no memory, it wouldn't matter as much. And you harvest the adrenochrome directly as they're born. You torture them so that adrenaline is secreted into the bloodstream, and then you take the adrenal glands and you actually they eat them and use them, and this gives them superpowers. From what I hear, it's like super version of cocaine that gives you clear thoughts and mind control. I don't know, but allegedly adrenochrome is the reason why some of these people seem sharp sometimes, and they look younger and all types of things, right? So basically harvesting babies and babies' blood. Now, I know not a lot of people probably connect all those things, but all those things were connected. And that all went back to the Trump organization. Now, Kim didn't go into all those things. What she did point out is that if you want records of that for the deep state, who obviously this is going on, you can go to Santander Bank, both in Mexico and in Spain, and see the complete records between Obrador, Mike Pence, and I believe Cuomo was involved directly as well. I'm sure it all went to campaign donations on some level, right? So that's the Trump organization, by the way. That's what he's known for. And then the latest vice president that was hired is this guy, Vance. And Vance is Skull and Bones from Yale. Now, if you're not familiar with Skull and Bones from Yale,
Yeah.
Skull and Bones, right? Now, have you heard of Skull and Bones?
No, I don't know. That's what I was going to ask you. I was like, what is that?
Okay.
And what does it mean?
So the Skull and Bones is a fraternity at Yale. It's a fraternity for the ultra elite. It's generational, right? Like the Bush family and all these things. And basically they worship death, right? And when you get into the Skull and Bones, you instantly have money put in your bank account. You have all these access to various things. And, it's basically kind of the fast track to a high office in the presidency or Congress. And there's lots and lots of presidents and congressmen and senators and government officials of all types that were Skull and Bones, because it's a fraternity of the ultra elite super pedophile of the Order of the Black Sun. So the Order of the Black Sun, all of these groups, including Donald Trump, they are Order of the Black Sun. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How do people not know about this? That's what I'm like shocked about.
Well, think about it. What do people, we have this incredible internet, right? Where anything you want to know, you just look up, right?
Yeah,
Now, you know that most people look things up, they don't get past the first page of Google, right? They don't get past the first page of
true.
Google. Now, so if you are Google
Mhm.
and you are part of the evil empire, which we know they are, you can then control what people think because you just put out the information and then you censor it. This is why censorship is such a big deal.
Yeah, but Mr. Rao, we went through this in COVID. Like, this is what's baffling for me. Like, I'm actually, like, I'm on TikTok and I'm on different social media platforms, and I'm like hearing people say some ridiculous things. And I think to myself, how do you not know this? Because obviously, like, I heard a commercial of his today, which was quite funny. Very low. He basically said that he's going to, what was it with the deep state?
Obliterate the deep state.
Right? And he said it so low. And I'm like, anyone that's been, in this whole conspiracy thing, that they say, but really it's the truth, they must do their research. They already know. So they're not going through Google. They're using other search engines. They're using Telegram. Like, there's a lot of people that have been, you know, awoken through COVID. So that's what I'm saying. I remember hearing about going down the hole and things like that. So I'm thinking, how was that not in there? And I remember thinking to myself, why do people follow this guy? Because, you know, he hasn't done anything. But even then, I'm like, just with Jeffrey Epstein, I'm like, just that in itself. And when you're talking about this, I'm like, well, I know, understand about the whole, the first page on Google. But I think there's something more to this. It's like you've got the cult mentality out there. I feel like it's that's number one, but also the other one is that you're dealing with a narcissist, and I think everyone's like kind of gone through a little bit of like PTSD with narcissists around us. So I feel like there's got to be more things to this because a lot of people that do follow Trump, not majority, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of these people are already, I guess you would say, awake and have done a lot of research. Wouldn't you say that? How did they not
Well,
find that?
so
This information.
what you're kind of talking about is kind of the next piece, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Q, the Q movement, I'll call it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which basically mimics the Bolshevik Revolution, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what they did during this revolution is they basically, you know, they convinced all these people that they were getting this incredible inside information, and there was these inside sources inside the government, and then they used it against them to basically identify the people they wanted to arrest and take out first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, so with the Q team, Q was always this when it started was this insider inside
Mm-hmm.
of the Trump organization who was giving us this incredible, incredible things to say, right? Now, Q in the beginning stood for question, right? He wouldn't say anything, Q, the character Q. It would just be a series of questions. It'd be like, why did this happen? Why do you think that Hillary Clinton only did this? And you'd go out and you'd research it. Now, that's brilliant because then people went out and they researched it heavily and they're like, oh my gosh, did you know that this person owns stock in this and this person's doing this? And all of a sudden people started to put pieces together for themselves.
Yep.
Now, as I've always said, you can tell people something. You can tell people something and they'll remember maybe 40% of it. You could show people something, maybe they'll remember 70% of it. But when people learn something or teach something them to themselves, they'll remember every word, right?
Yeah.
Now, not only that, but it was fun, right? The Q movement was really fun because he spoke in codes, and these are common intelligence codes, right? And he was using Q drop codes, right? And then you have somebody else come out and interpret the codes for you, right? So this was exciting to get inside information and feel like you were part of something bigger than yourself. So I don't want to take away from that. That is brilliant,
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant, right? And the information that was brought out, for the most part, It was accurate on a limited scope. It was true.
Mm.
Yes, these things did happen. However, the question is behind it is why, right? And that's part of the problem is that people, the why is so big and so overwhelming that it's hard to believe it. So that part, so you could get people up to a certain level of belief, but once you get to the why, it's so overwhelming. It's like that can't be like adrenochrome. Uh, People did not. I'm telling you, I've never heard anybody else talk about this. I've never heard anybody else connect these things the way I just did just now. Nobody talks about the fact that in New York State, when parents were standing up fighting against vaccines because they were trying to mandate the mumps, measles, and rubella vaccine. While that was happening, and they were forcing vaccines, they were preparing for the next phase of forced vaccination. At the same time, the same year they legalized 40-week abortion to a crowd of cheering people, right? To basically legalize infanticide, right? While this was happening, that you had illegal immigration and all of New York became a sanctuary. Those people don't connect that those things go together. But when you see how they go together, you're like, holy cow, that is diabolical, right? And that is what we're dealing with. All of this has been a diabolical plan. The Order of the Black Sun is also the League of Assassins, I believe, right? And I believe the base route for the League of Assassins is out of Chicago, right? And so the thing with this is that this group, they worship death. They worship the devil, right? Even though they, and if you trace it back, you'll see it like, you'll see that you can take the Nazi swastika and kind of turn it, turn it, and turn it. And if you did each time and left an imprint, you get the Order of the Black Sun logo, right? The original origins of the SS from World War II, which is the secret police that Hitler set up, right? That replaced the police, right? Was this Order of the Black Sun. And they had absolute reign to do whatever they wanted, right? So that's kind of the origins. But the League of Assassins goes back through every culture. There's a League of Assassins in Asian culture. There's one in Middle Eastern culture. It goes everywhere, right? So this goes back through all these cultures. It goes all the way back to King Solomon, right? And you can even see, like, when you look at Solomon's keys, that connects to the Order of the Black Sun. It's the keys because he made a deal to bring in these 72 demons from hell, right? These 72 chief demons to basically protect his treasure. And back then, Solomon was the guardian. He played the role that Kim plays now. He was the guardian, but he chose the dark side. And he had an agreement for 3,000 years with the Order of the Black Sun that expired in 2017. Now, that was the security agreement to protect the assets of the earth, which is basically to enslave the people of the earth, right? So that's how they view protection. We have to do this to protect you. So they constantly are protecting assets for the original or the other owners, I guess, of our souls, kind of thing. Now that's what I mean by that's. It gets to that point. That stuff is bananas crazy. I mean, it's real, but how do you get somebody to wrap their mind around that? And that's what we're constantly challenged to figure out, right?
Well, I think it's also not just get their head around it. It's like, I just feel like some people just don't want to hear that. They're like, okay, cool. Like, I don't want to know about that. That's too negative for me. So I'm like, sometimes people are like that, and but I just feel like you need to understand a little bit and kind of, my theories are ones that are like, no, that would never happen. Like, I remember, I had a family member, loved Oprah. And I was like, and I remember meeting her and I was just, I don't like you. And I remember they were telling me that she was an angel. You're going to love her. She's an angel. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay. And I went and I saw her. And when I saw her, the things she said, I said, thank you. I was so grateful I went and saw her. I said, thank you, because people like you are the people that I'm going after. And that was like at the very beginning. This was in 2015. And I thought to myself, and she said this comment that was ridiculous, and it was about her shoes, and she was basically saying, one day you'll be like me. Well, not these shoes, like,
You'll be in
you'll
my
be in my
shoes, but not
shoes.
these
Yeah, it was
shoes.
something like that. Yeah, it was something like that. And I remember, like, that was just one bit, but I could see right through her, didn't like her. And I turned to my family and I was like, I don't like this woman. And I remember my family were like, what do you mean? She's an angel. No, you are so ungrateful. Like, you get, this is once in a lifetime. She's from America. And I was just like, really? This is what you think is great? Whoa. But now they're starting to wake up to it. But when I first told them, when it came out that she was no good, they were like, that's just not possible. Oprah? No. I really thought the minute that this came out, like, this person actually said to me, what do I do if this is true? Do I just lock up my kids? I don't know what to do anymore. And they were in a panic and almost in tears. And I was just like, and again, they know me, they were with me, so they knew a little bit of, like, okay, weird things happen in this world. But they're like, that's too much. Like, laughing. So I kind of got to a point that I wasn't going to talk to them about it because, you know what, it made them feel uncomfortable, and I respect that. Sometimes, you know what, they're not ready to hear it. And some people may not be ready to hear it because it is, you know, it can be a shock to the psyche as well. Like, what kind of world am I living in? These are the people I praised, I looked for as a mentor. You know, a lot of these people, they are in a weird way. So it's a subject that I struggle with. I'm just hoping that people, people are aware enough that they're not going to go and go, oh my God, I'm going to commit suicide. That they're actually going to go, no, I want to be part of the solution. You know, that to me, sorry.
Yeah. So that's a good point, right? So Kim did talk about this as well. She talked about that she does have concerns, right? Because what appears to be this incredible, just adamant support for Trump, right? It's not really healthy in the sense of we're looking to the billionaire underdog, right? Who now survivor of an assassination attempt, right? To basically right all the wrongs because he's willing to stand up in the face of the deep state. He has the resources to do it, the attitude, the moxie, and we love that. And don't get me wrong, I love that. If that was real, if that guy is real, I dig that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, however, I've had direct interaction working with the Trump organization, right? I know for a fact we gave them options. We gave them real options instead of vaccines. Now, the way the law reads, that they should have taken those options.
A recording that was done with a certain doctor that was part of the 100 doctors, and this doctor claiming that he knew about the vaccine, like that we have on recording.
We do, actually. There was 27 doctors who were chosen as part of the advisory board after during the COVID event. And in this, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we'll let it speak for itself. Can't we just leak it? No, can't be. No, shouldn't say.
We can't leak it now that you just said it live on YouTube. Now we can't leak it because obviously that was our intention. It wouldn't be so much a leak now as an intentionally putting this out now. We can now intentionally put it out. Yes. But no, we can't leak it. We can't leak it anymore. For sure. Okay.
Can I I'll alter it and I'll put it out there because I think it's really important. Like the things that this doctor said, I was like, why? I had questions. Now I understand why it was never given out. But at the time when we were working at UNN, I was a bit like, why do people not know about this? So
this is one of the most prestigious doctors in the country and also in the world. And he is an excellent doctor. And he was forced to sign a gag order for any protocol that they came up with to fight COVID-19. So the Trump organization forced them to sign this. And in addition, he was not allowed to say anything negative about Donald Trump or anyone in his family. He and this so they came up with all these protocols that would easily eradicate and treat and get rid of COVID. Many. And he was talking about it. And he said there was dozens of them that easily would treat this. It wouldn't have been a problem. And they kept that information silent. So anybody out there who says I'm a never Trumper, listen, you can go suck it. Because I'm telling you, I saw that myself. That man said outright, we had things that would treat it on every level. It would have cured, I mean, you're not allowed to say cure, I guess, but would have basically cured the condition, would have treated it, and it would have prevented millions of deaths. Millions. And that was kept silent and covered up by the Trump organization in the form of a gag order that these doctors were forced to sign. And I dare those doctors to be man enough or woman enough to stand up and tell the truth about it. Because you ought to be coming out and saying it yourself, right? Because that's what the Trump organization is.
Thank you. I think that's the theme. So anyways, let's, what I wanted to ask you, can we move along from Trump? Because I feel like we've given enough airtime.
Yes, let's jump on to a better topic.
It's a better topic, but it's more, can you explain it? Because she talks about a female representative, Lilith. But I might be saying it wrong, but the name was Maywa, I think. Can you explain that? Who we are? Just give me a little bit of an explanation.
So Maywa is revered in lore, I think, is like a goddess, but it's actually a title, right? And so there was originally like a gold agreement, and Maywa, or whoever held the title of Maywa, right, could basically issue clearance codes, right, for the Order of the Black Sun or the Deep State. She also had a security contract, so she helped issue the security contracts. And this was the female embodiment of Lilith. Lilith is allegedly, now I'm not sure exactly about this, but Lilith is supposed to be like the original first wife of Adam that they don't talk about in the traditional biblical text, but it's in the Babylonian text, I guess, right? She's not mentioned, but like also revered as a she demon, right? And so whoever held that position of Maywa would have an agreement with 4 other parties. It was Anti-Source, right? So Anti-Source held the gold. Maywa would sign off, I guess, right? She had a leasing agreement with the treasury from other countries, I guess, or like the Grand Treasury. And then I guess Russia. I think Russia to implement communism and destroy the Russian Empire, which I think is also the Tartarian Empire. I think that kind of goes together. I'm not exactly sure, so that might not be exactly right. But anyway, so Maywa was the line of Lilith, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the bloodline from Lilith, who is like, I kind of think is like Lilith is kind of like the anti-Kim, right? Because like, you know, like one is like Eve is like the mother of all living, and Lilith, you know, the way the story goes, this will sound terrible because people are going to be pro-Lilith, but it was like Lilith wouldn't obey Adam, so she was forced out, right? The she demon. But, you know, I don't know exactly who this character was, other than I know that she's kind of like the evil embodiment of the feminine, the dark feminine, right? So that's what Lilith, that's what that is, right? And then what would happen is every 99 years, this leasing agreement with Anti-Source, the Treasury, Russia, and Lilith, the Maywa, would come up for renewal. Now, 2 years ago, in 2022, is the last time a woman held the position of Maywa. She was like 80 plus years old. And that agreement was not renewed because Anti-Source doesn't hold the gold anymore. The gold is held by Source, right? And Kim Gogan is the guardian who controls that agreement. So she is the one in control of the gold directly from Source. So they can't just sign it over. So what they just tried to do is they basically were going to sign over this gold
Mhm.
to GCHQ and basically exterminate humanity. Basically, I mean, everything kind of goes back to, and then we'll kill everybody. Right? Like that's their
But
big plan all the time. Yeah,
it might be a dumb question. What's GCHQ?
that's it's the global command headquarters, something like that.
Okay.
GCHQ, global command, I think. Global command headquarters.
Okay. Just
That's like
want to
central
clarify.
command for the deep state.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Like so, all of them go back to GCHQ, which I should probably know more about, but I don't. Not this time.
Sorry,
So,
I just
oh,
assumed
and the
you.
other thing is the UK banks, the banks in the United Kingdom, um, like Barclays, right?
Mhm.
They're all going under, like they're all failing. So they were all counting on this money that was going to be signed over from Maywa, the line of Lilith, and they were all counting on this to come through. But
Mhm.
the new system is a light system, and that system with the agreements with Maywa were part of the dark system.
Yeah.
So, do you have that? We do have that, right? Here. So, this was interesting because this came up the other day, and somebody posted this in our chat, and I thought, wow, this is really something I happen to be familiar with, right? Okay, so this is on somebody's talk show, right? This woman is Elizabeth Rodriguez. She's Filipino, right? A lot of your alleged Chinese elders who are trust sign off on trust. They often go back to the Philippines, right? Because there's a belief that Solomon's gold and that all of the Philippines is built on a giant bed of emeralds, and that Solomon's gold and all his riches were hidden there. Just FYI, little side note, But so Elizabeth Rodriguez says she was born in the Philippines and immigrated to the U.S., Guam in 1975. Blah blah blah. Now let's see. She talks about the lockdown. She was isolated. Okay, now here's the important part. She says, "I am the only legitimate heir of the Rodriguez Trust." Okay, this trust will fund all the projects in all the countries of the world. Now, if you're not familiar, when it comes to projects, right, this is a common language in the world of the currency revaluation, right? There's also the prosperity funds, prosperity projects. These are all money that's supposed to come pouring out, Nisara, Jasara, right? This is how they baited us. We're going to give you all this money to change the world. That's what they always told us, right? But this was always a big lie. So a lot of people are still hung up waiting for them to do that. But the only real project funds will come out from the global repository. And that has now been established and set into play in the real light system that the current financial system runs with. But the Rodriguez Trust, now coincidentally, just to make sure to make it clear that I'm talking in fact, I know what I'm talking about, okay? So this woman says that she's the only heir to the Rodriguez Trust. Now, I spoke to a man named Jesse Phepps, something like that. And he claimed to be so it was a big meeting set up. He claimed to be the signatory for the Rodriguez Trust, as well as the Alpha Omega Trust, the White Spirit Boy Trust, which I believe are actually the same trust, to be honest. But he was Mr. Big Shot, right? Now, so I get him on a call with Kim, and he's sitting there talking to Kim, saying, now he's also in the Philippines, right? Now, he wasn't Filipino, but he was in the Philippines. And he says, listen, he's talking to Kim, and he's basically like, which was, if you ever hear these guys get funny with Kim, it's hilarious because like she does not have it, right? He's like basically like, listen here, Missy, got to talk like that, and he's basically like, look, I figure with my signature and your codes, we can do a lot of good in this world. That's what he says, right? Meanwhile, he basically said he had already signed off on the global currency revaluation. And Kim knew if you did the global currency revaluation, you would collapse the value of the dollar overnight and you would crash the world economy, which is what the plan of the Chinese elders was. And then they were going to come in and buy back everything for pennies on the dollar. That was the plan for the global currency reset or the currency revaluation, which are, depending on who you talk to, two events, but they're really the same, right? So he says, I signed off on that already. That's why in the world of the global currency reset, people are constantly talking about this. It's happening, it's happening, it's happening because of people like Jesse Phipps, who are allegedly, the signatory. Also, another character in the global currency reset, right, talked about with the Chinese elders is Madame Wu. Now, doesn't Madame Wu sound a lot like Mei Hua?
Yeah,
Madame Wu,
actually.
Mei Hua. So I think Madame Wu, the character from the global currency reset, was the Mei Hua because they believed that Mei Hua was going to sign off on the gold and release it. Right? That's what they thought was going to happen. And this would make all the currency asset backed, and then the currency would revalue. People would be rich overnight, and quadrillions of dollars would be released in the system. Just an absurd amount of money. No one considering that this would instantaneously collapse the value of everything, right?
Mm.
Because it would be every single person could have been a multimillionaire, and it would have meant nothing, right? So, anyways, the Rodriguez Trust. So in this man says to Kim, with my signature, because he thinks he's the boss, in your codes, we can do some good. That's what he says to Kim. Kim's response, I don't need your signature. Mic drop later. Right? So, and I watched it happen because this guy, like all of this guy's people, were they're all building him up. Everybody's so excited. He's such an important guy. He's so powerful. He's the guy to talk to. So get him on the phone with Kim, and he thinks his signature matters. It didn't matter. She didn't need a signature, but he sure as hell needed her codes. Right? This is when the system still worked that way, that you would use codes to bring money down.
So this is, when you say code, you mean the allocation numbers, correct? That she was talking about how they're encrypted and that you can't hack it. Is this what we're talking about? Is that what he needed?
No. So it used to be with the system, right? You would go up to a specific type of terminal, right? Like a Swift 2 terminal, I think it's called. Or there's various military terminals and things like that. And you go to this terminal and you get this high level access, and you would punch in a code, right, to draw down money, and that would give you the allocation numbers. Right. This is also known as the asset redemption system. You would register an asset, right? Like you register a piece of land, like Manhattan, and then in return, you get a code with an allocation number that gives it a value, right? So $40 billion for Manhattan, let's say, right? And that would print out this allocation number. And from that allocation number, you could then take it to the Federal Reserve and print out money. And the Federal Reserve would they'd fractionate the dollar over and over again. So they might get $1 billion, they'd turn it into $100 billion. They'd fractionate it 100 times or something like that. And then they divvy out currency. So they devalue the currency from jump, put it out sparingly. They all take their huge cut, right, for this asset they stole. And it would kind of go out that way. That's how the back end of the asset redemption system worked and the whole basic global economy. In 2007, every single piece, every asset on the planet was registered. So the off-ledger accounts got shut down. That was done by Marduk, right? Because he didn't need them anymore. His job was to gather all the assets and register them. So he did. But anyways, back to the Rodriguez Trust. So Jesse Phipps said there was Rodriguez Trust. Basically, Kim was like, I've never heard of it. There is no Rodriguez Trust. Right? So that she was talking about in the real off-ledger accounts held at the time in the Man of World Holding Trust or the Unknown Country, right? The real off-ledger accounts with the global trust in it. Now, there's other off-ledger accounts, but they're not backed by assets or allocation numbers, right? So this woman, and I'm not speaking to her intention. I'm not saying that she meant any harm. It sounds like she's trying to do good here, right? She's basically saying that she's going to put all this money out, right? It's the Platinum Jubilee, right? From the Rodriguez Trust. But that money for the Rodriguez Trust, I believe, if I understood correctly, was money that Kim brought in 2012. They used those allocation numbers, put them in the OICS system, which is the currency system for the United Nations, traded on them, built up this huge number, but they were never connected to anything. So they can never bring them back on ledger. They can't bring them on ledger. right? There's no allocation for those. There's no allocation numbers for those. So without Kim's permission, it doesn't do any good, basically. Okay. So this is essentially useless, right? So this woman here, Miss Rodriguez, what's her name again? Elizabeth Rodriguez, right? She's one of many who've come out over the years and said, I am the sole heir to this, right? Because somebody in the order told her that she was special, right? And I'm not saying maybe she is special on some level, right? She might be the sole heir to the Rodriguez Trust. There's just nothing in it and certainly not enough money to fund the entire world, right? And it's not coming down. So what happened was yesterday, Kim mentioned this, that this woman, Elizabeth Rodriguez, she went to do what every one of these people try to do. They try to activate the gold and bring the gold down and start the golden platinum jubilee, right? And what happened? Nothing. No money came down again. Because even though she thought that she had the access to do this, that she had the authority, it didn't matter, right? She does not control it. So unless the deep state works with Kim, as Kim has proven over and over and over again, they'll never be able to bring down a dime, and she will not support their ridiculous practices, right? She won't. We're not in it. This is a golden age. So what they were trying to do is reverse out the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's the Rodriguez Trust, that part that she was talking about with and Elizabeth Rodriguez, as far as I can tell, she believed that she was holding the title of the Meiwa. And she thought she could activate this agreement and bring down the gold. But that agreement, the Meiwa agreement, was with Anti-Source, which is no longer in effect. There is no Anti-Source anymore. And was also expired in 2022. So that agreement's no longer in force. So they couldn't even bring it down anymore. So they don't even understand the protocols or how to bring money in a light system. Is basically what.
Yeah.
And for that matter, I don't know anyone who does except for Kim. And now the light system is back moving in the right direction, and we'll get to that in the next part.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, because she also mentioned that the owner now is Source. It used to be Anti-Source, but now it's Source.
Right.
Correct?
That's right. So it was Anti-Source, and now that's all been put into Source because we are in a light age. Right?
And this is when she was... Sorry, go.
No, go ahead.
This is when she was explaining in regards to the M01, if I'm mistaken. I think
so I'm a little fuzzy on that. So she was talking about M0, right?
It was this, correct? This is how it was. The money was, and maybe just bring this down, that would probably help as well. So this is how the setup before, is this what she's talking about, and how now it's the giver of life declarations? Is that all how it kind of all comes together?
Yeah, so now the new gold agreement is the giver of life declaration, right? So money is all backed with that, with real gold, with the veins of gold that are a super hyperconductor of source energy in the earth. They're the giver of life. So that super hyperconductor of gold, the veins of gold all throughout the earth, are thriving and revitalizing the planet as well as our person, right? So the planet's being restored, we're being restored, and that is what is backing the currency, is the best I understand it, you know? And that's compared to what used to happen is that currency would basically be funded by our life force, and then it would be assigned a credit or a debt, and the debt would be taken from us. So we would always be enslaved by debt.
Yeah.
And what the order continues to try to do is they want to stay in control. So they keep trying to set up ways to create new debt instruments to enslave us. So they think if they control it, they can enslave us, right? Currency in general, notes in general, if you notice when you get $1, it says on there, this basically it's a debt. It basically tells you this says that I owe you. Right. I owe you this amount in gold. A bill, like notes, like currency bills, they basically are a debt for the real asset, right? So this is how money would be exchanged, right? So instead of carrying like a big carton of gold or a big a wagon full of gold, you would just keep the gold in one place. The banker there would write a note and say, here, you have 1,000,000 gold pieces. And then you could take that paper and go someplace else and pick up your gold someplace else, even though it's not the same gold, but it prevented you from taking it from one place to another. Basically, I'm not explaining that well, but you get the idea, right?
I get it. I do. I understand. All right. So, anything else with Mei Wang? I don't mean rude there.
Mei Wang, Qing Bao.
Mei Wang. Mei Wang.
Oh my gosh. Yes. No, nothing else.
You're remembering the time of what was said.
Yeah, I do not remember the funniest thing in their intro. The funniest thing in their intro, and I know it was. I know what they were saying. It could have been rectified with one word, but they introduced, like, I forget what Sonny was saying, and she goes, the military, something. She goes, but worse yet, they're Chinese. And it just sounded, and if she would have said the U.S. military, but she didn't. She just said the military. So it was just funny because it wasn't racist at all, but it came across like.
I'm pretty sure they didn't mean it, but when we heard, we could not stop laughing. So when I said that, I know him so well that I'm like, really?
It was totally innocent. It was just funny. It was just, we were both laughing about it because I was like, you can't say that. Right?
Well, because, they'll pull it apart and say things. So
yeah,
that's the other thing. You got to remember these people, when something, maybe editing, sometimes, we were editors. We know that mistakes things can be said, or there's a glitch here and oh Lord, how dare you say that? And it's like
I have offended many people unintentionally, by that way. And look, it's intent. Like sometimes things come out the wrong way. It's okay. Like it was actually just a funny, a cute little mistake. It wasn't even a big deal. We just thought it was funny. I heard it and I was like, did they really say that? So, but but the point was, if they would have said U.S. military to have the Chinese control them, that's a big deal. To have another country control your military, that's a big deal. So the point was solid. So I don't want to take away from the point.
So anyways, where would you like to move along? Because I'm like super excited because she's done 2 shows in regards to the, you call them demonlets?
The demonlets?
Yeah.
Like piglets? But
the
demons?
Demonlets. No, I'm going to ask you, what does that mean exactly? However, may we move along to there? We've done political-wise, which I guess is all together.
So the demonlets that she's referring to are these demonic beings, these lower astral beings. I think, in some cases she's talking about the Tarzakians, and she was talking about them, but I think she's actually talking about like Marduk, Enlil, Enki, Anti-Source, Lucifer, right? And that they could fractionate their consciousness into thousands of parts. And she's calling those demonlets, right? Like piglets, right? Like little pigs, like little demons. And so it'd be a fraction. And this could take hold in a body, right? In many cases in the deep state, willingly. They would invite this being in there. And she took the time in a previous show to describe it like a starfish. So starfish are kind of amazing. So I thought it was a good example she used. You could cut off the leg of a starfish and it'll develop into another starfish and the leg will grow back. So she's describing these beings, these little fractionated parts of these, higher, lower astral beings. I don't know. Like these super demons, right? That basically they were powerful enough to fractionate themselves, take that portion of themselves, put it in a human, and that would basically end up becoming a version of them, right? So like a version of Marduk, a version of Enlil, embodied, right? So these people would often do this willingly. So the deep state has done this willingly. They were the first target. They would get a demon willingly. Yeah.
By deep state, you're talking about, the puppets. the celebrities, we're talking about the presidents, we're talking about, influencers, not more influencers, different, but like we're talking about celebrities and people that we see on TV, right?
Yeah, I mean,
By deep
them
state.
and probably high-end operatives, people that are involved in the higher-end satanic rituals, people that have benefited greatly from deals with the devil. You'll see this from time to time that'll leak out, like Angelina Jolie came out and talked about her induction into the Illuminati, right? This carnal, satanic ritual that she was part of. You've heard people talk about it with like Lady Gaga came out and basically said like sometimes when she's singing she doesn't know if it's her or it, right, because she's taken this demon inside of her. Who's that
Oh,
other
was Lady
one?
Gaga? Okay.
Yeah,
Rihanna?
Lady Gaga has come out and said that. Yeah.
Rihanna? Well, I
Katy
thought it was
Perry is another
Katy
one.
Perry, yeah.
um
Um,
I mean, so you'll hear about things like that, right? You'll see
yeah.
you'll see the Jay-Z and Beyonce flipping the sign for the Illuminati, right? Because they think that that's made them more powerful because they're you know like the
But,
media version of these, but they're small players, I would imagine, in the grander scheme of things.
okay.
But yeah, they probably have a demon in them of some kind.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about celebrities. We're talking about celebrities. We're talking about people on TV.
We're talking about people that you don't see, people that you don't
Okay.
see as well. That a lot of the behind the scenes people who are
Okay.
calling the shots, pulling the strings, military, government officials, people behind the presidents, people behind the senators.
Okay.
A lot of people don't ask this question, but like whenever you see like Congress and you'll see like people up there and then behind them, there's always people sitting and they
Yeah.
will like tap on their shoulder and tell them what to say, right? Like
Okay.
all these people are, these are operatives, now are all the operatives infected with this? No, I don't think so. But certainly they have a potential to be.
But they willingly did this.
Mhm.
That's what basically and I think it was 25% if I'm not mistaken, because I know that there was 80% infected this because there was an alien technology also put out back last week, and it was in 24 to 48 hours, you know, the system went quite low because of this alien technology, correct?
Yeah, so explain it. So explain
Uh,
what the light system is, because people aren't going to know what that means.
okay, well, but if we go, so I feel like it's really important to also state that these demon lists were put in place decades ago. So it wasn't so much just now; it was put in decades ago, right?
Yeah,
So,
so this is decades old plan. So this probably goes back to 1978 or around there when they had the big
oh
plan,
wow,
the Bilderberger Convention, where they basically came together and decided that it was time to transfer to have a. This is what the real meaning behind peaceful transfer of power is. To
okay,
peacefully transfer power from America, from the dragon families, the black dragon families in the West, which is America,
yeah,
to the golden dragon or yellow dragon families of the East, which is China, right? So
okay,
what you've witnessed over the past 46 odd years is that plan being executed to basically transfer power from the United States over to China. As a matter of fact, you even have, they talk about this, I think it was called Operation, shoot, I can't remember, but this was a big operation. You actually saw it during, at some point in the Capitol, you had a general or somebody or a captain being interviewed, and he said, "Well, this is the power of seeing." This was in Washington D.C. when they basically locked everything down in Washington D.C. And he was talking about the peaceful transfer of military power, right?
mm,
Because the Chinese paid the military. This is the Chinese elders, by the way, paid the U.S. military salary and basically gave them orders on the highest level. So everybody in the military, I'm telling you that's true. You can track that down probably and find out if I'm lying. But I'm telling you, I got that directly from General Dunford. That is how they were being paid. That is that
wow,
was that was direct. So that's how that happened for years. They had paid the salary for years, right? And this was back like 6, 7, 8 years ago. They were paying the salary for the U.S. military. So because the U.S. government was preparing to be taken over by the Chinese, and at one point there was Chinese super soldiers all along the border, 30,000 Chinese super soldiers. There was Chinese battleships in the Panama Canal. They were off the coast on the East Coast, and then you had China on the other side. They had the United States surrounded to take over. Right, so that was a very real threat that was taking place, and that's several years ago now. But that's a reality that was taking place that nobody really talks about or knows about.
Wow.
So this current state is they were trying to reverse the golden age. So we are in the golden age, guys. Might not feel like it yet, but we are in the golden age, right? We're in the golden age, and because we're in the golden age, go ahead.
What's the golden age, Mr. Rao?
You tell
What does
me.
that what does that exactly mean? I,
Exactly mean.
I, yeah, I would like. I don't know. You got to explain it a little bit more. What's the golden age? Is that like
I don't know yet because to be honest, the golden age means you're sovereign. Number one, truly, really sovereign, right?
yeah.
Sovereign meaning you are free to make your own decisions, to rule your own world, your own life, to be anything you desire and pursue to be. And you are also responsible for anything that you become, right? Your rights
Mm,
are your responsibilities, and you are the one that defines them. You can't do harm to other people. And but basically, there's no other real rules. Just, you can't do harm. Do no harm, right? It's pretty simple. Don't hurt other people, but you can be anything you want to be. You can live however you want, right? And you can, that's what it means to be sovereign, ultimately, right? Now, what that means is it comes with responsibility
yep.
because we still live on a planet where we're reliant or interdependent on one another. So we are part of a greater sovereign collective, right? So when you live in a collective or a same place as other people who are also sovereign, you are obviously interdependent on one another, right? If I want to make a car, I rely on somebody to make the tires, to help me make the metal, to, you know, craft the pieces, the microchips, all the parts, the steering wheel, and then we're going to assemble it, right? But all this requires different people playing their part, and each one of them has the right to make a sovereign decision to participate and contribute. And what's beautiful about that is when you're sovereign, there's pride in everything you do because you're responsible for it, right?
Mm,
You get to make what the world becomes. So, this world that we're part of, we're now creating a sovereign world with other sovereign beings. So, we are all responsible for what happens to the world next.
mm,
Now, we've always been responsible on some level. We have to take responsibility for what the world has become as well.
yeah.
But that, in large part, has to do with slavery codes, contracts, covenants, and poisons and limitations on our information. All those limitations and governors have been removed, right? I'll say it like that. I was going to say theoretically. Well, they've been removed. What that means and how we use it is what we're all kind of in the discovery stage of, right?
Yeah.
Now
I
we
think
get to
we're.
discover what that means. What are our limitations if we have no limitations,
Mhm. I think
right?
we're learning as well because I think your creator God will be giving you what you need as time goes on. But before we go there, I really want to explain. She talks about these demon lists, and she talks about how people were experiencing, you know, basically really weird stuff or pain, and things were happening to their person, but also perhaps they were experiencing something that could have been really scary. And the why we're bringing this up is because, what's really important here is to know that, we're not alone. And I think the one thing about this whole change of energies and all this, what they've been trying to do with us is trying to divide us. I think that's been the whole biggest thing, just division. Every single person, like find a follower or find a leader and follow them, and then there you go. So I really think we should explain that, and then I would love to hear how your weekend went, and also explain because there are questions as well. People, we were just talking about narcissist minds, we were just talking about the cult mindset and things like that. Many may say that, what makes you different? So I want you to answer that question a bit later. But can you explain this?
What makes me different? Well, I'm glad you had nothing.
No, no,
Nothing makes
no,
me different.
no. What makes us different? What I'm trying to say, maybe I explained that wrong. So let me
I'm just
correct
playing with you.
myself.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make things really clear. What makes it different to when people might say, it looks like you've got a cult mindset because you're following Kim after everything. So that's where I was going, but I'll come back to that
Oh, I
question.
see.
So,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll come back. But demonless, can you tell me what happened there, and where were they? Who were they coming after, and why were they coming after? And what happened? What were they doing? Because I heard things. They come in at night. Sorry, they leave at night. They come in during the day and they speak to, people, put images, ideas, and they also would give them thoughts, which is images, or whatever.
I will talk about it. I will talk about it,
Okay.
but you are going to expand on it. Deal?
I,
Deal? Okay, good. I'm going to accept your silence as your consent. Okay. So,
Whoa, we're going there.
nice, right? I just caballed
Okay.
you. Yeah. All
We
right.
do, just remember, we do live together. You know that, right? So, we can
Okay.
be there right now.
All right. So Kim identified three groups that were basically being attacked by these demon lusts. Now, and this affected 80% of the whole population.
That's a lot.
That's a ton.
80% were infected by. Is this the thing that was implemented? Just to distinguish the both, was this what was implemented decades ago, or is this what was just put out for the 24 hours and 48 hours? Like that was
See,
done
see
by
how good she
alien
is. I keep
powers.
going off on tangents. This this is something that's been, these are old protocols, right? That they had,
Okay.
Implemented. From what I understood, but the basic principle is it was the infection. It would be like this. These are things that were implanted in the body, right? These were
Okay.
actually, there was four groups she identified, I think. So these are the four groups. I'm going to list them. The first one was the deep state, who willingly accepted it. They're demonlit, and what it would do is the demonlit would be with them during the day, right? And it would give them advice, like a voice talking to them, telling them what to do. And this would give them enhanced kind of abilities, because these demons used to have direct access to the lower astral. They had all types of really deep information. But since the lower astral has been cut off, these demons no longer have that.
So
Yep.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Rao. I just went back and just watched the live. You did cut out because you cut out me too. Can you explain the number one? What was it? Deep state? Because you cut out.
Okay, it was four groups that were identified by this program, the Golden Age Reversal program, we're going to call it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was to release these fractionated demons, and all these demons were flooding into the system from this, right? And the first group
Wait.
was
From the what? Sorry, Mr.
from
Rao. I
one
don't.
from
You're
one of
cutting.
these agreements. I'm cutting out. Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. That's great. It means what we're saying is true and solid, so it's important. Okay, so one of the agreements from the, I don't know. I think it has something to do with the Maywa agreement, right? So
Mhm.
so basically, these demons were coming into the Earth plane, and they were flooding the Earth plane. There wasn't enough bodies. So the first group that they were identifying was the deep state, who willingly took in these demons. They wanted these demons because they gave them enhanced abilities, and these demons would stay with them during the day in their bodies and basically advise them. Then at night, these demons, which I think are actually part of a group called the Tarzakians, they would go out and they would have a form. They would leave the body in like a shadowy form, right? Like you probably have seen them, where you see like shadows moving at night and you realize like that's not just a shadow. And they would go do things like espionage and various other covert activities, right?
Mhm.
So that's the first group, is the deep state. The next group is the group that has now, because remember, there's the Merovingians and the Melchizedek, and these have been The Merovingians are darkness, and the Melchizedek are light. So the Melchizedek have the capacity to hold the most amount of light essence, but also
Mm.
the most amount of dark essence, right?
Yeah.
So in a light age, the Melchizedek would have the most direct connection to source, and therefore, in the deep state's perception, they would be very powerful if you wanted to manipulate the system. So if they could take over the Melchizedek, then they would regain control. So the next group, the dark group, the demons targeted was the Melchizedek, right? This bloodline that's all
Mm-hmm.
throughout the planet. Now, the next one is higher dimensional beings that have come here to inhabit bodies, right? To assist with the restoration. I'm saying that. I think I'm taking too much liberty. I think that's what she was saying. To assist with the restoration, right? They've come here for this purpose. And those beings vibrate at a much higher frequency. And they also have a greater capacity to hold more light essence or dark essence, right? But they're here to assist with this. And I've actually heard Kim talk about this, calling on these, calling for assistance from others that are here in bodies, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
actually described that as, I thought this was really a nice touch when she goes, you know who you are. She goes, if you feel like you're not really from here, she goes, that's you. And I thought that was a great point to say that to
Yeah.
people because it helps connect. Like, a lot of people feel that way. Like, I'm not from here.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I know I'm not from here. A lot of people, they ache to leave here because of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because it's so dark here and they long to go back to someplace else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that after I say this last one. Yes, we are. Yes, we are going to talk about that next. We're going to talk about that next. The last one, the last group was the uh, the poisoned, we'll say, right? The vaccinated from
Mm-hmm.
the mRNA vaccine. And
Yeah.
the mRNA vaccine was the reason why they had it ready so quick. They're ready to what it was supposed to do. This was engineered by the tall whites. The tall whites are the DNA specialists, right, of the others, and they were enslaved on this planet and forced to create things that hurt humanity because they were slaves and so were we. And what they did is they realized what they were doing, and the mRNA, the operating system that was going into the vaccines, stood for Marduk Radio Network A. What was it?
Access. Access. Access.
Access, right? Okay. Radio Network Access, right? Okay. So they were putting this Marduk Radio Network Access in us, I can only assume, so that Marduk could express I remember what she said. And that was supposed to make bodies, the human bodies, inhabitable by demons. It's supposed to make them dark enough so that they can be inhabited by demons. But only people that received 2 to 3 vaccines were even close to it. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
know most people who had one had 2 or 3, to be honest. But they had 2 or 3, and a lot of people had 4. But apparently it failed. So a lot of people got sick. But what happened was the tall whites, who are good guys, that's actually life force enforcement, right? Or whatever they're called now. But they're life force enforcement. Those are good guys. They've protected us and taken out these other guys. But what they did, I think it's the same group. I'm pretty sure. And these guys have. So what they did is they modified it. So this is always what would happen. They would enslave the others to make horrible things to kill us off, and they would never give them the full or the best version of the technology. So this mRNA vaccine, it failed. It was a failed attempt. They were trying to get, 1 billion people or whatever it was vaccinated so that demons could inhabit them. So that's what these demons were just poured out doing. And what happened was it reflected in the light system. And if you remember, the light system is the quantum AI system that runs everything that's electronic on the world in the world, and specifically the financial system, like was
Mhm.
she's often referenced and explained it this way. And that went from it was at like a 99 to 100%, and suddenly it was dropping down to like 79%. And she couldn't understand why, and this was why. This was the
Mhm.
reason. These things, they basically were coming back. Thank you, Monica. These things were basically in so many bodies connecting to these things, it was lowering the frequency, right? And this was happening. It was very aggressive, and she talked about how aggressive this was for people with from the Melchizedek bloodline, right? And also for people that, yes, they did. Thank you, Angela. So I'm not supposed to look down at the screen, but whenever these things pop up, I have to acknowledge them. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So, um, but basically, this whole point is you had an experience that I think you might be willing to talk about,
So
or or
basically,
cleverly avoid it. We could cleverly avoid it too. That's fine.
she did mention something that I think is really important before we go there. She did mention something about that the parents. She spoke about the parents. Who are the parents? What does that mean when she says
I,
the parents?
I always get confused by this. I don't fully understand. I know there's like the parents, like they were the next in line after like it was like Marduk, Enlil, and Enki at the top of the order. Then the next line was the parents, which were, and then this is also a group of others, and then they would breed with humans and create offspring, and this would create the covens and the coven masters, and then they would breed and make more, right? And basically, the closer you are to the parents, the more, I don't know,
Got it.
more gifted your abilities were with these others, right? So that's what she's referring to. She's talking about the hierarchy of the order,
Mm-hmm.
but exactly who they are, I always get confused by that, to be honest.
And I think we should go back to the mRNA. She did say that they did do a sleep program, that it was automatic in the system, if I'm not mistaken. The other thing that she did say was, and I think it's really important to say, just in case if people are hearing this, they were, you know, vaccinated. I think it's we just have to put it out there that you would need to make a covenant with, like you have to covenant. Now, can you explain what a covenant is? Because
Right. Okay. So what she
it
said
doesn't.
was, even if people were vaccinated, these demons couldn't enter in your body and permanently stay there, right? They might have had some kind of influence on you for a second, right? Or might have hurt you, but they couldn't permanently reside in your body without your permission. You
Mm-hmm,
would have had to basically, because there's new covenants in place that allow you to be sovereign. So
mm-hmm,
what they used to do is this is where you get these I guess it's the parents. I'm not sure, but I'll use this example. Enki, for example, right?
okay.
Everybody was incorporated, right? We all were born and we get turned into an incorporation. And
Mm-hmm,
so that is Enki corpus. Corpus is Latin for body. So body of Enki. So you could see how that could translate to Enki corpus or incorporated. So basically, we would be considered his. So he believed he could do whatever he wanted with our bodies, along with Marduk and all of them. They all believed and I guess by covenant and agreement, they could. So they could make decisions on our behalf because we were their offspring, is how they saw it. And so they could say, hey, we're the children. So they could do whatever they want to manage us, hurt us in any way they saw fit. So basically, if they decided to put a demon in us, and that was what was best for us,
mm-hmm.
it's like the most perverse, weirdo world of parenting kind of thing.
Mm.
That's
Okay.
how it used to be. So these are really old protocols, and
Mm-hmm.
now the new protocols don't allow that because now we're sovereign. So we
Mm.
used to be basically possessions of someone else. Now we are sovereign.
Okay.
It's like we were genies in a lamp, slaves serving someone else's desires. Now we're free to pursue whatever we want. How amazing!
Wow. Where'd you come from? That sounds.
I got it from Alice in Wonderland the other day. So
Yes, we got it from there. I knew it. There's a reason why we watch stuff. I always say it. Okay, so how important is it? I remember I keep going back to January, but I'm just saying from January on to now, there's been a lot of information out there that the situation has put out there, that from intel to how to heal and so on and so on, and explaining. But it's very important to make a covenant with Source. In your opinion, why is it important? Why should we do that if it resonates with your faith? But what does that mean? Like, because people might see this and go, oh, wait, what? What do you mean covenant with Source?
So Kim referenced this in, I think it's January 1st on United Network.Earth. Okay. January 1st episode, really great. And she talks about bringing down divine light source energy from kind of what I would say. I'll describe it this way. It's my own words. So if I don't get it right, I'm giving you the reference of where you can go look it up. Okay. So if I don't explain it just right, don't go crazy. Just go look it up yourself. But she talks about bringing down divine light source energy, which I would describe as kind of the abstract or the unknown, right? Sometimes in the Bible, you'll describe it as the great unknown. So this is like kind of your thoughts, right? So from heaven or the abstract, the unknown, into physical matter, right? Bringing something from that. Now, she talks about this in reference to bringing down $1 sometimes. She'll reference this about bringing down divine light source energy into matter from the ninth plane into this plane, right? And going through all these different levels to get to here. And she says to bring this energy down in what you call currency, $1. That ends the war. So imagine that's $1. That's what she said. We're all connected to it, and just bringing that down. Now, the way she talked about doing that, is one of the ways that she mentioned, right, is she talked about us making a covenant with Source, right? So if you want to manifest anything into reality, make a promise. Now, covenant is another word. It's a word for agreement and for promise, right? So it's a promise between you and Source, or you and God, that says, I promise to do this as my part. In return, I am asking for this. And this is an agreement, a covenant we're making with Source. I think she's saying, some people would call it a contract, but I think the word contract has negative connotations. But it's like a soul contract or a soul covenant that you have with Source. And it's important because it defines the nature of the terms. And if you make a covenant with Source, you must fulfill that, right? You're saying, I will serve you in this way, and this is what I will do in return, right? And this is what I need to do that job, or this is what I require from you in return. And if you make that agreement, Source he always fulfills his side of the covenant, and we have to fulfill ours. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that right?
Yeah, it does. I think everyone will, take it, absorb it, and see what does that mean for you. But I love that you said it's a promise. Whatever you want to call it, there it's between you and your creator, or you and God. And I think that's pretty cool, because now it's like, even if, like, before, you don't know who you were talking to. These, before we were connected to anti-source. Really scary to kind of think about that, going, oh, wow, that's really interesting. So the fact that we now can make a covenant, and that's why I wanted to explain what covenant was, and that it's okay if you had, vaccines, like it's okay.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and by the way, there are really good options as well that can help with, because you've got to take out heavy metals, and there's a few things with that there are solutions out there. Because again, we're magical beings. So I'm always saying, you can command your cells, and just, it should happen. And if it doesn't happen now, it's going to happen more and more as time goes on, as the energies start to settle down. Because right now, it's a bit crazy out there, because, with everything that's going on, but not only that, it's like the energies are changing. We're feeling it. People that haven't felt energy before are feeling it too. Things are coming up for people they probably didn't even know were buried there. Or they just have the answers that, where they need to go, what they need to do. And I think that's something that many people are now going, oh, what is that? I experienced myself, something over the weekend that actually kind of scared me, and made me feel a little bit like, oh, I don't want anyone talking to me right now. I don't want anyone near me right now, because it was really scary for me. And you had your experience, and I'm sure there's other people, and I can see in the comments a lot of people were having pain. They felt pain. I can only read it, a few that I've got here. People were feeling things like pain. But one of the things she did say, if you're feeling pain in your solar plex, it was very normal. She even said something, apparently it was like burning a hole through your solar plex, coming from the astral plane to the third density, if I'm not mistaken.
So that's your solar plexus, which
Yeah.
is it's like your abdomen, right? That's like where it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit lower, actually. Here. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just checking. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. And if you're feeling pain, if you're feeling, all these things, everyone's different. My experience was completely different to yours, but had some similarities. And some people got sick. I heard, some people on our team were really sick. And she was saying that she was helping people in this process as well. But what's really good about this is, if you did feel that, it is going to start to settle down, because what's left of it is 0.2% of these little demonlets, and they are getting weaker. So I think that's really awesome to also hear too, like to put it out there that they're getting weaker, from 80% to 0.2%. That's pretty good. There's only a left. So let's hope it continues.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
if this grows,
I've heard a lot of different things. I know for me personally, just for anybody out there who might feel awkward about these things, I was sitting there and I was talking to Laura, and I was like, I could see her, right? And it was like I was looking through my eyes, but I felt like I was out of my body, like something was trying to replace me. And it was almost like I had to like pull myself back into my body. That was my personal something that I experienced. It was really like uncomfortable. And I could see her, and like she was kind of my anchor at the time. I was like, oh, and I was talking to her at the time when it was happening. I'm like, okay, this is what's going on right now. Right? And luckily we embrace each other's like all these different ideas, which I think is hugely beneficial when you have somebody that understands you're crazy, right? Like, like when like my crazy gets hurt, like it's not crazy, it's real. But like a lot of times, if you would talk to somebody else, they'd be like, "What are you talking about? Like this is nuts, right?" Like they wouldn't understand it. So when you have somebody that understands you and you're like close to you, and like you can talk to them and reach out and say, "Hey, look, this is what I'm seeing right now. Are you seeing this? Or you experiencing this?" It's so helpful.
it really
It's
is.
so helpful to have a buddy, so to speak, like somebody that you can count on to talk through these things, because these things can be scary. That you're
It
seeing, right?
can be.
I've seen
It
lots of
can
scary things.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I've seen a lot of things over the years, and I've been scared a few times, and I'm like, no, I've got to conquer my fears. But this one, I had to kind of like take a step back for a second and kind of, analyze a few things. And I think yesterday here, because there's one thing about knowing that it's not the case. But, it holds a lot of responsibility when you have to do a job, no matter what job it is. Everyone would know it holds a lot of responsibility. And especially if it's like, no one wants to do harm. So again, if you're for the light, and one of the things you're going to ask yourself is, am I one of those? Can I get it out of me? And what is going on? You're going to ask those tough questions. Like you have to, like one thing I've realized about this whole thing, be real and honest with yourself when it comes to healing, when it comes to understanding what's going on, and also saying, I don't understand, reaching out for help and saying, I'm feeling this. And sometimes the answer you hear is not what you want to hear. And you might not understand it, but you will later. And that's something that I've experienced a few times. So with this experience, we both had a little bit of, our own scary moment. And I had mine, and you actually thought it was a joke because this happened over the weekend. Actually, Friday, Thursday, it doesn't matter. It was around there. And we were outside. And usually, anyways, doesn't matter. We were outside.
It was like in the time I went to get popcorn and came back.
It was a popcorn.
I don't remember what it was, but I know it was like that, and I was like, "What just happened?"
Well, no, because what happened was you left, and when you left, all I kept thinking was, well, funny thing was, I'm this whole experience happened, and I just once, like you said, it was 30 seconds. It felt like a lifetime for me, and my heart was in my throat. I didn't even know what was going on. So I run to you and I was like, baby, this just happened to me. Please sit down. And the funny thing was you started making jokes about it because you actually thought like, what just happened in 30 seconds? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just telling you, please sit down. I need to tell you this scared me. So I start to explain to you what happened. And the first words, again, I don't know if any of you guys, you probably understand, when you experience something, you just want to get it out because you don't even know what's going on. But it's like, here, help me understand this, please. So we're talking about it. And suddenly I'm like, this is what I heard. And suddenly I felt like I had no control over my body. Now, mind you, I've had a few things try to come. And then, I've been told a few things I've worked in my business and things came out there that, led me to where I am today. Being able to go into these meetings and I kind of never understood why they would talk about, certain things with me because I'm like, why? And I didn't understand. It didn't make sense to me. And at that time, I didn't even know you, and I don't even think UNN was operating back in 2016, 17, 18, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway,
you're being too vague. Explain what you're talking about. Explain it. Explain what you're talking about. You've had experiences. You've had experiences where you were offered things, right? Because this is what happens to people that are vibrating at a high frequency with light. This happens. I'm telling you, I've been recruited by all types of different intelligence agencies to be, where they try to control me, different handlers. For me, like this used to happen all the time. Until finally I was so belligerent, they basically identified and said, Tank, they see you as a loose cannon. And I remember my response was, you're damn right I'm a loose cannon. Right? Because I'm like, what are you guys doing? Right? So my point is, this happens. It's okay. So it might help someone else going through something because you've had some pretty incredible experiences.
Yeah, especially in the business world. There were times that, I experienced things, getting told if I didn't do something that they're coming after my blood. And I'm like, at the time, I was just like, yeah, you obviously don't know who I know. Now, granted, when it happened, I was a little bit like, did this just happen right now? And I kind of got a little bit scared, and I just, I went and I told my father, and I was like, look, is this normal? He's like, no, it's not normal. What happened? And basically, they were saying I had to take the contract, and I had no other option. And I was like, well, yeah, I do have another option, and I'm not going to take it because I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil for you or nobody. So I would always pull out, or we've discussed this before, suddenly I would just know the language. So not only know the language that they were speaking, but be speaking in another language.
What you are talking about.
I think we can talk about
what you are talking about is when Venezuela.
The NS is not the United Nations. We had a contract with the United Nations, and we thought it was
for an import-export contract with the United Nations.
Yes.
There would have been a life-changing contract.
Yes, sir.
It would have, and wasn't this gonna make it so you could get food back and forth to Venezuela? Wasn't that part of it or no?
That's correct. We were the only country at the time that was able, because they refused, because the thing was people were fighting for a piece of chicken. And, my family and I, we had an importing and exporting business. That was one of our businesses. And we thought, well, how do we get food? We need to get them food, because at the time our business partner was stuck there. And he was telling us what was going on. And we're like, no, we have to help them. Like anything will help. Even if we get little packages, we've got all these resources. Let's put it to work. My family and I, our dream was to feed the world. We just thought this was the most incredible opportunity, because we were going to be feeding the world. And at that time, we didn't know nothing about any of this. However, it was the best thing that happened, because one, we were able to stop it before it even went through. And I got to realize that, holy moly, the United Nations are the most corrupt mofos ever. And by God, the things that they do. And the only reason why I know this is because by the grace of God, I heard what they were going to do. And that to me, I was there, and there's no one can tell me anything else. So therefore it was that. There was
Wait. I'm sorry. Slow down.
Yeah.
Stop. She was in a meeting, I'm pointing this out because this is important, and this detail it doesn't put anyone at risk. This is important. You don't need to put anybody's name out there. This is important because it'll help people understand that you are drawing on divine source light energy. And I remember Kim telling me this. I asked her about pulling source energy into me, and she said, when you need it, it'll be there. And you were in a meeting, and they were talking about something in a language you don't speak.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What happened?
Come on. Like, we can talk about that another time.
Suddenly you understood the language.
I did. Yes.
And you knew what they were trying to do was going to hurt.
Yes. Yes.
Hurt people.
But this has happened multiple times. This is the thing. It's the thing. I've had the blessing that when I need the information, it just comes. It doesn't matter what language it is. It doesn't matter if I don't know what it is. I don't know how to do it. It will just come. And this is everyone. You just have to be willing to say, yep, I'm ready. Let's do this. You'll learn. And that's all I did was, hey, I'm ready to do my job. And so as time went on, I would hear different languages that I didn't understand. I would suddenly just have the information just fall on me. Like I remember dealing with I will not say his name here, but we were dealing with this gentleman that we'll call him Mr. And this Mr. He basically was connected to bankers, and he was connected to all these things that I at the time had no idea about. And I remember the gentleman, one of our ex-business partners, was buddies with my father, but then suddenly it kind of just got a little bit weird, and then suddenly he realized that he started partnering up. He wanted to partner up with me and kind of like get rid of my father, and yeah, it was weird. And they started offering banks, and they started offering. They wanted to screw people.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Mr.
Yes, you do. They offered to give you a bank, right?
True.
They were going to get. Now, that doesn't make sense, right? Why would you give this young woman a bank?
Well, they were giving. So this is the thing. As this was going on, we were looking at like contracts and things like that. It was just too easy. And why? I didn't understand it at the time, and I was just like, everything's just coming too easy, but you want us to cross lines that just don't make sense. And it didn't matter, but every time so for example, someone sent a message. We were going through, we're trying to close it all. And someone sent me a message, and at the bottom of this, I'm seeing little kids naked. And I'm like, what is this? And it was so little, because if you see on WhatsApp, when they screenshot, have you ever looked on WhatsApp, there's like the photos at the bottom? And they screenshotted that to send it to me. Now, these men that were old men and had wives as well, and they were like, you know, we're talking about high up there people. Like at one point, the Prince of Abu Dhabi was ready to come and fund my football club. You know, he was coming to come to South America because I had my stadium for 100 years. You know, because I was the president of my football club. And I thought it was a great opportunity at that time. But then I started realizing how much politics there was in the industry, and not me. I was like, that's not going to happen here, which ended up in the long run, we lost a lot more money out of it because we invested so much money there, but I couldn't chop these guys' wings because, to be honest, it was their opportunity. And who was I? Because they were literally at the time, they were under my contract. So not my contract, but they were like, they were contracted to the club. So basically, we own them. That's how it works. You know, if you're if a soccer player, you're either a free agent or not. You know, boys at the time, because they played in our football club, I technically own them. That sounds horrible, but basically,
you own their contract rights. You don't own them as people. You own their rights to soccer, right?
That's right. So basically, if they wanted to go play somewhere else, we also, you know, would pay for their wages, make sure, you know, that they had all the things that they needed to succeed. And at the time, we weren't receiving, actually, I never saw a cent come back from there. And the reason was that because my father and I made a decision to say, no, we would rather them actually succeed. And a lot of them actually, I think four of them actually went into being professional football players. And
that's because you released them from their contract so that they were able to go and play.
Exactly.
And you were the champions at that time, and you lost your coach because of it, right?
Well, yeah, it was. They didn't like the decisions we made, but like I keep saying, I understand the politics. I get it. Politics is everywhere. But I'm sorry, but if this is my football club, I'm going to make a change. And, you know, left and they went on to all their other stuff. And that is what it is. But, you know, I started noticing they're going, hang on a second, lots of things just didn't add up, didn't make sense. So anyways, let's go back to what happened on the weekend, because we kind of went off. Yes. No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good. What questions do you have, Mr. Rao?
No. I get it. I get it. Go ahead. Carry on. So this weekend, you were saying, what I want you to talk about is what happened with this contract with the United Nations. All right, I can't talk about it. So, this is an important thing, and it's something really, really important, that when you need to know something, if you are really focused on doing the right thing, and you listen to that still small voice, you will hear things, understand things, languages you don't know. You will literally be able to use these gifts and abilities to discern the situation and make the best possible decision. And you have an amazing example of that I am going to get you to share at some point in the future. So
I just think it's fair to say the whole that movie that was out there, The Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom, right?
Yep.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, Sound of Freedom.
Yes? Okay. Yep. That is true to a point. You know, I think they've got some truth in there, but one of the things when you see the oh my Lord, the box. I can't believe I've just
the box.
The crates. The crates. No.
Oh, the crates. Oh yeah, they show the cargo shipping containers and the kids are.
Thank you, Jesus. Yes. So how they fill it up. Now, what people don't realize is that when they fill this container up, what they do is they basically put the goods front, and then they put something else in between, and behind there, then that's where the good stuff are. But what they need you to open things in the documents. So then, hey, listen, like, we're not doing anything wrong here. What I need you to do, little sucker, because that's what they thought I was. What we're going to do is we're going to put X amount, okay? And we're going to give you that. But in return, you're not going to put that much in there. You're going to leave us some room. For what exactly? What do you need room for? May I ask? Now, that's where I'm saying that movie shows the truth. That is true. But the reality is what they do is the commodities, for example, sugar, rice, anything that they can put there. And so when you open it and you go through things, there's nothing there. That's what I heard. And I thought, whoa, it ain't going to happen here. And that is disgusting. So for me, I know for a fact that the union, and I'm talking about, they were, at that time they made me believe that, wait, you need to understand, just the Venezuela has two presidents in there. There was, I'm not going to name anyone. There are other people involved in this, but they've done nothing wrong, and nor did I, because I pulled out straight away and said, I'm out of here. And actually, that's when I started investigating. That's when I went through all my issues with my ovaries, and when the Child Protective Services, suddenly all these things started coming out. I'm like, what? My eyes started opening up to things that I never thought could even exist in this planet. And I remember saying to a family member, like, I was crying because I was like, this is real. And again, I was in a business that I'm meeting all these people from all over the world and thinking, I'm here trying to save the world. That's how they promised you. You are here to make a difference. You are going to do it because you're smart, you're beautiful, you're this. They will promise you the world and everything in it. What do you want? The world is your oyster. And you have to kind of go, huh? And again, thank the Lord that I knew that deep down that power, money, all of these things were never going to make you happy. Like, I just knew I wanted enough. See, the reason why I went in there was because we wanted to feed the world. We wanted to help people. This is why I put my neck out there. I went and I got, I spoke to Australia Bank, and I was like, basically, I got the first ever bank account opened up in Australia to ship out food to Venezuela because they were starving there. They had no food, and they were fighting over a piece of chicken. They were literally using their currency as toilet paper because it was more cheaper to use their currency in toilet paper. It was insane there, even to the point that, I'm not going to say who, but at one point, they get kicked out of the the hotel. We're talking about a 5-star hotel. Get kicked out. Why? You've got to go. This person looked up, and I know that this happens because crazy stuff was happening after this. That hotel was full of kids after this, full of kids. And when he looked, some of them didn't look right. It was disgusting. At that point, I thinking to myself, what kind of world do we live in? How can I help? What can I do? This is disgusting. We're talking about kids now. Like, we're not talking about adults that can defend themselves. It's horrible for anybody. But children? Like, are you kidding me? So that's when I came down to this. And then I put my foot in places that I don't think they liked. And I would be a big mouth when I had to, and I would walk away there. Because I thought, at the end of the day, at least one person, I came into this world to help. I didn't come here to do something horrible. But what they do is, if it wasn't for things just falling on my lap, if it wasn't for me understanding the language that I had no idea about, and I'm telling you, it was Arabic. I had no idea how to speak Arabic, and I just understood it. Now, other people I know have had this happen too. Or, for example, I would hear what they were saying, and that was always the best one because I could hear exactly what they were saying and what they were to do and thought I was a sucker. and I didn't fall for it. I didn't care. And me and my business partners got into a lot of fights, but towards the end, when I showed them proof, they were like in tears saying, "Oh my Lord, I'm so sorry. I should," by the end of it, they trusted me. Okay, there's a reason why she's walking away from this one, because I would say stuff and then be like, "Here you go. What did we say?" Because I would find it. Somehow I would find it. It didn't matter where, but they would guide me and find me the answers. So
Hallelujah. See, it wasn't that hard. So
anyways, it's not that hard. The thing is, I don't want to talk about it because I get passionate and too passionate about this, and I don't know if that's a good thing
no
or a
such
bad
thing.
thing.
There is absolutely
But
no look. You can't have too much money, be too good looking, be too healthy, being too passionate about something that matters. There is no such thing. No such thing.
I know, but this is the thing. I look at it and go, thank you that this happened, because it taught me a lot. Because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. But then I would go, now everything kind of made sense, and how, we'll look after you, don't you worry. And for me, I don't believe in that. It's just, yeah. Throughout the years, I was able to see it with clearer eyes. So anyways, this weekend, Mr. Rao, go back there.
We're going on. We're
that.
going on 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap it up. Okay.
Okay.
Now that was great. For anybody who listened to this, I've been waiting to talk about this for a long time. That we're very careful, and I've been waiting for her to talk about it first. But I'm going to repeat this now because this is such a profound thing. She was in a business meeting to ship goods back and forth to Venezuela when Venezuela was struggling with all the civil war and currency issues, right?
This
And
was
not
around 2000, just to give you the time frame, it was right before COVID hit. So
right,
this was in
2016, 17.
2019. So COVID, December 2019, we were dealing with this in 2000 and at the start of 2009. Now, really, it all started around. This has been going on for a long time. However, but full on that I can and show evidence for and everything. This was more in 2016. That's when it came really strong. And then in 2018, they kind of warned me, like, because in 2015 they said you're gonna have to lay low. But in that laying low, I didn't realize that we were this gentleman was part of the problem, and and that's the disgusting part of it.
So this is Cabal Recruitment 101. Okay, so I want to make a point. So as Laura was going up and making these big connections to change the world, right? Because this is what happens. We go on the people go on the. This is what used to happen. This is what used to happen. She goes into a meeting, and they don't think anybody else speaks Arabic because no one else does, and they start making arrangements in Arabic, basically that they would ship the goods, and they would pay them. They would pay
Yeah.
Lauda and her father's company. They would pay them to ship, say, 10 boxes, but they'd really only ship 8 boxes of goods, and there'd be space for these 2 empty containers, right? So they would make space in those containers to traffic children.
And other stuff too.
And other stuff too. Whatever you want.
Stuff too.
That's how it's done.
But the main thing was children. That was the main thing. So that was for me was the disgusting part. Don't get me wrong, the other stuff are horrible too, but the children part, I was just like, you're talking about they're going to be going on a boat. It doesn't arrive the next day. Some would even wait.
You're talking about kids being emaciated, given a bucket of water like a dog. It's not even humane. It's not even decent to treat a dog this way. But I'm just saying, like this, like throwing some water bottles and and some rice in a hole, right? Now, this is what we got Jeffrey Epstein arrested for, right? Because we exposed this is exactly what they would do. They would take these shipping containers and put uranium in it and just throw the kids in who they kidnapped from Child Protective Services. They would drug them up and just throw them in there like dead fish and ship them out to his island. Right. And that was just the beginning of a journey that was a connection out to Haiti, right. And back to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is a hub for this kind of trafficking. So I'm glad that we talked about this because you avoided doing any kind of business with them. You
Yep.
canceled the contract because this had to
I
answer to your
wait.
business
No, no, no,
partners.
no, no. I literally walked away. There was a business. My father and I walked away. We literally said, take the company. We're dissolving. We are dissolving. You can have that. You can go with your little friend because you wanted to, because it was said in, look, again, I don't want to talk bad about this person. I don't know. Okay. But what I do know is his response was, I don't care. And my father and I, we both said, enough. It's not happening there anymore. Sorry, buddy. And we dissolved that company and let them have it. And we were with Aramco. Like, you know, we had like the list goes on. And but when you get to that point, it's like, I don't care. I will lose everything. I will start all over again, but I am not going to do it that way. And I think if we all just did that and said, I don't care, because trust me, doing these decisions, you know, and you're looking around and you're thinking, how am I going to put food on the table? You know, what am I going to do? And you're walking away from a contract with millions of dollars.
Generational wealth. You're walking away from this was hundreds of millions of dollars would have been made over next 40, 50 years. It would have been
And that was just,
generational wealth. It would have completely changed. So that's what people go after. Look, there's nothing wrong with going after generational wealth, but
no,
you
the
can't do
right
it
way.
the right way. That's right. Right.
You do it the right way. And this is the thing, corruption has knocked on our door a few too many times. But I'm proud, all right, baby, I'm proud that at the end of the day, they can do whatever they want. They still haven't succeeded because at the end of the day, we're still standing. You know, they have come at us in different ways. And I'll tell you, it has been a journey. But the one thing that I can say is, by far, when you have your heart into something that you really, you know you are loved, you know you are light, and continue saying that over and over and over again, it doesn't matter what comes your way. Someone, something, somehow will save you from a really bad situation, because that's what happened to me. And for a while, I was a little bit ashamed of it because I thought, holy shit, I could have done really a lot of damage if I didn't hear them talking in their heads, or if I didn't understand that language, or I didn't find that document, or if I didn't see that naked little child on the screen, or if I didn't actually hear Mr. Blah, blah, blah say this, or so on and so on and so on and so on. It leads to going, holy shit, what kind, sorry, French, but what kind of world do we live in? And I then made a choice, my family and I said, we will be the change. And it doesn't matter if we start with one rock, two rocks, but we will build an empire. And funny enough, that's what we're doing. We're building an empire, and we will choose to do it the right way. And I urge everyone to do it the right way. You know, it's the only way, because or else, at the end of the day, the whole thing that's happened, I know it's sad to say, but it's our fault too. And I know that they put things in our way, and I understand that we couldn't consent to things, and there was programs and this and that. We have an opportunity to wipe slate. We have an opportunity that the slate is wiped. Now, the two things that we're waiting for is for you, the person, to start to remember who you are again, and then you'll be guided on what to do, how to do it, and what exactly do you need to do. If it's healing, integrating, forgiveness, thanking it, there's all different things. That's your journey. But the second thing is that once we do that, the world is our oyster. And we've got to keep remembering that, because one thing you said the other day to me, the only way that we can fail is if we make a mistake. Isn't that what we're told to you?
Yes.
So we're at the place that we can't fail. We can't. They tried every way, and for what I saw, for what I heard, and what I saw, there is only 0.2% left from 80%. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So imagine how magical we are. So, Mr. Rao, I will let you finish doing this, the outro this, and it was lovely seeing to you today. And I was just about to greet everyone.
What do you all think?
Love to know.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the extravaganza. All right.
Anyway,
Cool,
thank
gang.
you, Mr. Rao. It was good talking to you, and I'll leave it to you now.
All right. So, well, that concludes today's episode. We really covered a lot of ground there. Please share this with your friends, family, loved ones, and anybody that you want to make mad or make happy, whatever it is. Please come back, and whether you want to hear it or you just want to yell at us and tell us we're wrong, we love the controversy, and we also love when people are of like mind and want to change the world. We are going to dive into these topics more and more, and we're actually going to start working with some other people, and you're going to see that coming on board as we start to actually do something about the problems and these challenges that we're facing. So the key to changing the world is you. You are the one thing that is common in every problem you ever had, but you're also the only thing that can change it. You are the one thing common to every solution the world has to offer. Anything that we can change the world comes down to what are you willing to do to make it better. So my name is Stefan Rao. This is the Life Force Network, and let's go change the world.